What is up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball. And today it is Wednesday, January the 14th. We are into our second breakdown. Today we are going to get into four games. I'm a little bit under the weather, so not giving you quite as much as usual, but there is something to be played in all four of these games. Before we get started, if you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a like on the video. Those two things help a small channel like this immensely, so thank you if you have done that. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We do talk sides and totals through these breakdowns. But a few big games to get into. We'll jump right in. First up, we're in the SEC, where Vanderbilt takes on Texas. Undefeated Vanderbilt is currently a 5.5-point favorite. The total in the game sits at 165.5, very high up there. So we'll start with resumes. Vanderbilt's perfect season so far. They're 16-0. Only injury for them is Frankie Collins. They've been out without him for a while. They have 6 wins in the top 50, but they do lack some of the higher-end wins, as Nate Oates perfectly put it before his number 14 Alabama lost 96-90. Now, when we do these rankings, they're based on KenPom, not the nonsense that the AP puts out, the top 25 or whatever. We're using actual analytics. And with the Alabama win, there were some injuries on the Crimson Tide side. They've been dealing with that for a while now, so you could poke a hole in that victory if you wanted to. They also have a couple questionable single-digit wins. They only beat Western Kentucky by 5 points. Western Kentucky's 157th, and it took overtime to beat number 87 Memphis. Strength of schedule for Vanderbilt is 45th. And Texas, a little bit different. They are 10-6 overall. They have some up and down losses. For example, they dropped games to top 10 Duke and UConn, but they also lost to the number 89 Arizona State. That was by 1 point on a neutral court. They lost to 73 Mississippi State in overtime by 3. And then they have losses kind of in between to Virginia and Tennessee. Best wins for them, they recently picked up their best win against Alabama, who's number 14. Same situation as the Vanderbilt game. That was a banged-up Crimson Tide team. They win 92-88. Also have a victory over NC State, who hangs in at 24. That was on a neutral court, and they won by 5. Other than that, those 2 wins, they have no wins inside the top 265. Texas has played the 97th most difficult schedule. The one thing that you can say kind of redeeming them, they've played well against the top 50 when they've been in those games. So strength of schedule aside, Texas has looked decent so far. As far as stylistics go, Vanderbilt, 271st in effective height. They're still 39th in rebounding. Texas definitely has the size advantage. They're 60th in effective height, 21st in rebounding. But Vanderbilt's not really that small of a team outside of the 5 position. They're just using Jalen Washington, who's 6'10", and Devin McLaughlin at 6'7" in a rotation there. So they basically are going to cede some rim protection, cede some size at the 5 position, but their guards aren't that small, and they don't really have an advantage or disadvantage against Texas there. When Vanderbilt's on offense, very good shooting team, 11th in effective field goal percent, 42nd in three-point percent. They shoot a lot of threes. When they're not shooting threes, they've been very good at getting to the rim. They're 6th in two-point percent. Tyler Nickel and Tyler Tanner, both excellent three-point shooters, 47% and 39% from beyond the arc. Duke Miles and A.K. Okereke aren't too far behind. And they're going to shoot a ton of threes, man. Only about 20% of their shots come from right at the rim. They've been very effective scoring there, but this is a team that is very good using pick and pops. Texas is going to have their hands full defending this. Ball screens, these guys are excellent at manipulating that. Texas is 44th in total defense, and they're 237th defending the 3. They don't allow a ton of three-point shots, but when they do, their opponents are shooting 39%. Dalen Swain's by far the best Texas defender, but not really seeing a lot of ways this Texas Longhorns team stops Vanderbilt on offense. The real X factor is what Texas can do on offense themselves. They're 82nd in effective field goal percentage, 62nd in two-point percent, 177th in three-point percent. They don't shoot a ton of threes. They're 190th in three-point rate, so that's not a huge concern. When they do, they're kind of all over the place. Jordan Pope's at 36%. He's their main three-point shooter. Teron Mark and Cam Heide are their second and third most involved three-point shooters. They're at 28% from Mark and 49% from Heide. This team plays a lot in transition. They come off screens. With Dalen Swain and Tremont Mark, they can kind of matchup hunt through these screens because of Vanderbilt's size, but I'm still not sure that's enough. This Vanderbilt team is 10th in total defense. They're 4th defending the 3, 55th inside. That makes sense with their size, but they have excellent on-ball defenders. Tyler Tanner's a great on-ball defender. Duke Miles and Devin McLaughlin are pretty solid, especially McLaughlin inside is important. So as long as they stay out of foul trouble, I think you can slow down this Texas team, but that is something that is pretty important. When you get to the periphery, you have neither team really turning the ball over, but Vanderbilt plays super aggressive. That does two things. First, they force a ton of turnovers. They force more turnovers than Texas by a wide margin, but Texas generates a ton of fouls. And when you play as aggressive as Vanderbilt does, you get in foul trouble often. Devin McLaughlin, 5.4 fouls per 40. Jalen Washington, 4.6. Okereke, 4.5. Duke Miles, 3.9. Texas doesn't shoot well from the free throw line. They're 181st, but they shoot a ton of them. That could be a problem if you have these guys for Vanderbilt in foul trouble, and it's my main concern in the game. Tempo is strong, evidenced by the total. Vanderbilt is 41st in tempo. Texas is 134th, but I think this largely comes down to strong games from Matas Vodakaitis and Lassina Traore for Texas, who both need to rebound in this game and probably generate fouls that Texas wants to win. I'm not sure that is the best path to victory, and we took a Vanderbilt minus a 5.5. We have this current number closer to 7, to be exact. There's a ton of games today. I'm going to search it. We currently have this minus 6.9 in favor of Vanderbilt. For those of you looking at the total, we currently have it 165.5, so nothing really to be done there. But Vanderbilt is one we will play. Main concerns, fouls, size, and a road trip for a Vanderbilt team that people didn't think would be this good, frankly. Next up. Iowa takes on Purdue. 10.5-point spread in favor of Purdue. The total is 142. No major injuries in this game. Iowa currently sits at 12-4. They have 3 top 100 wins. They have not played a difficult schedule at all. They're 136 there. Wins over 70 Ole Miss, 88 Grand Canyon, and 39 UCLA. Best win by far was UCLA. UCLA had to come across the country. They've been very bad when they've had to do that historically. Losses for this Iowa team: 13 Michigan State. They lost 71-52. That was a bad one. But Iowa State 60-62 or 66-62 on the road. Minnesota 70-67, and Illinois 75-69. They've hung close in a couple of these games. In spite of some struggles, we'll get into that. They've yet to win a true road game, which is concerning, playing Purdue on the road here. But that's where we sit with Iowa. Purdue, meanwhile, 15-1. Their only loss came to Iowa State at home. They got absolutely blown out. Iowa State's a very good team. They do have wins over 14 Alabama, 22 Texas Tech, 31 Auburn, and 38 Wisconsin. Most of those were not particularly close. In fact, 3 of them were by double digits. Only Alabama, they kept it within 7. Purdue's won 3 true road games already. They played the 11th most difficult schedule. It's a great body of work for Purdue. As far as stylistics, Iowa's 119th in effective height, 76th in rebounding. Purdue is 13th in effective height, 8th in rebounding. There's no way around this. This is a big advantage for Purdue with Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and even Daniel Jacobson when he comes into the game. Iowa does not have a good post presence. Their front court is weaker. So when Iowa has the ball, they are 12th in effective field goal percentage, 11th in two-point percent, 37th in three-point percent. They're not shooting a ton of threes, 171st there. But I do think most of these shooting metrics are bolstered by their schedule. Teams that can take away Bennett Sturts have effectively limited this team. There's no way around it. Sturts is shooting 39% from 3. You kind of need big games from Cooper Koch, 41% from 3. Alvaro Folgueras at 42% from 3. Those are kind of floor-stretching bigs, but they come at a cost. They're not creators, and when the ball is in Bennett Sturts' hands and you dedicate extra resources, put 2 on him, the offense is almost completely stalled. One big X factor in this game, they're probably going to need to start Folgueras again. He just started in their last game, played 34 minutes. He played poorly, mainly on the defensive end, but you got to stretch Purdue out, man. You got to take Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn out on the perimeter. Fulgaris, I guess, can do it. He is a 40% three-point shooter on a small sample so far this year. But I'm not sure it's going to be enough. Purdue has good rim protection. They have the guards to take away Sturtz to some degree. This is going to be pretty tough. When Purdue has the ball, this is a great matchup for them. Iowa tries to take away transition. Purdue has no problem playing in the half court. They're like a top 5 half-court offense in the country. They're 7th in effective field goal percent. Elite everywhere, top 20 in 2-point percent and 3-point percent. Good shooters with Braden Smith and Lawyer, both at 40% there. CJ Cox as well. Iowa's a real problem inside. They're 149th in 2-point defense. They're trying to start Fulgaris now. In the last game when they did that against Illinois, despite keeping it close, they allowed their season high points at the rim against Illinois. So if that's going to be an issue, Trey Kaufman-Renn, this front court should probably eat against Fulgaris or whoever Iowa wants to put out there. With that said, Purdue is going to play a lot of inside out. They do a lot of post-ups. Iowa has better numbers than on the season compared to like their recent games. That comes down to just strength of schedule, in my opinion. I don't think they have the bodies to really stand up in there. Neither team turns the ball over much. Iowa forces a lot more turnovers. They're 6th. Iowa also finds themselves in foul trouble more often. That could be a huge problem against this Purdue front court. But Iowa is 113th in bench minutes. I'm just not sure what the overall talent of those bench minutes actually are. Tempo in this game should be slow. Both half-court teams. Iowa's 340th, Purdue 279th. Our numbers have some value on Iowa. And frankly, despite all the stylistics, Iowa's still hung close in a lot of these games. Mentioned, like giving up season high points at the rim against Illinois. Well, they kept that game pretty close. So we actually have some value there. Not enough for me, given all of the mismatches. Model makes it minus 9.4 for Purdue. Makes the total 143.5. I'm just nervous based on the efficiency. With that said, one thing you can play in this game, mentioned we'd have at least something, is a prop. In the prop market, we took Trey Kaufman-Renn over 1.5 assists. They play a ton of inside out, and he's already averaging over 2 per game. There's going to be a lot of openings in the front court for Kaufman-Renn and these forwards. So that is one we will play. Did pretty well in the props yesterday, 3-0. And on that quickly, if you're interested in props, we do player projections for just about everything. Minutes, points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, fantasy points. If you're into that, you name it, we have it. It is in the Discord. The link is below. There's also game projections, which include totals, spreads, team totals. It's all there. Anyway, let's get to our next one. Fun one here, one I'm excited for. North Carolina's got to go out west for a conference game against Stanford. 3-point spread here in favor of the Tar Heels, 143 total. No major injuries in this game. We did take an over, and tempo was moderate. 216th, North Carolina. 182nd, Stanford. So pacing not really for or against you. To get here, North Carolina is 14-2. Their 2 losses came to number 13, Michigan State, and number 32, SMU. They do have wins over 23, Kansas, 26, Kentucky, 37, Ohio State. However, they've only won one true road game. That was against Kentucky. But this has been the 11th most difficult schedule, or excuse me, the 100th most difficult schedule. Traveling out west has been troublesome for a lot of teams, evidenced by what Stanford has done this year. Somehow they're 13-4. They have losses to number 121 Seattle, number 148 UNLV, number 69 Notre Dame, and number 15 Virginia. The Virginia game, they had to travel on the road. However, they picked up 2 top 50 wins. They beat St. Louis on a neutral court by 1, and then they beat Louisville at home. The Louisville game looks awesome on the resume. Louisville's ranked 16th right now. Louisville is also battling now that they lost Michael Brown. So it's kind of a weird body of work for Stanford. They're 88th in strength of schedule. One other win, they picked up a weird road game against Virginia Tech on the road. It's hard to decipher what this team is. You have 2 losses outside the top 100, a couple of pretty good wins. It's just volatile, and we'll get to maybe why. Stylistics, North Carolina is 10th in effective height, 24th in rebounding. They play with 2 awesome front court pieces in Henry Visar and Caleb Wilson. Stanford is 89th in effective height, 101st in rebounding. It's going to be a lot for Chisholm Akpara, who's questionable in this game, and Oscar Gitte inside to defend Visar and Caleb Wilson. So North Carolina has the ball, 64th in effective field goal percent, largely coming from their interior presence. They're only 183rd in three-point percent. They shoot them on a moderate rate. The best shooters have actually been Visar when he spreads the court. He's at 51%, not a ton of attempts. Derek Dixon's at 38.5, and Luka Bogovic is at 31%. Kyan Evans, he's at 32. Kind of the way that breaks down, your best shooters are on small sample sizes. Your players with more attempts, like Bogovac and Evans, they're shooting poorly. How does this match up against Stanford? Well, Stanford, their best defender is Gide inside, but I don't think it's enough. They're 59th in total defense, 145th inside, 148th from the three. With Visar spacing, Caleb Wilson being a potential lottery pick, I mean, it's going to be very hard to defend North Carolina on the inside. Stanford is not a good shooting team either, which is what leads to some of these volatile results. 225th in effective field goal percent, 240th in two, 187 from three. They can't really shoot. So random games when they turn it on, they can beat better teams. That doesn't happen that often. North Carolina on defense, with the size, they're an elite interior defense, third in total rim protection, 65th in three-point defense. The place they've struggled at times has been via ball screens. And Ebuka Okori, the point guard for Stanford, has been very good in that area. Can lead to opportunities for like a Benny Jeeler who shoots 43% for three. Even Ryan Argawal, he's at 38%. The question is it enough? If that's all you're really getting because the rim protection is so good for North Carolina, I'm not really sure. Especially with like Seth Tremble back in the fold as a defender, things could look different from North Carolina moving forward. Peripherally, neither team turns the ball over often. Stanford forces a lot more, but not expecting that to be a huge issue. Stanford also fouls way more. And North Carolina is 15th in generating fouls, which could be a major problem in this game. You could see North Carolina at the line quite often. We already mentioned tempo, but hopefully that points to some potential data points towards the over. The cliff notes, North Carolina is going to score inside at will. For all of Stanford's issues, they do have some pretty good ball screen offense, which North Carolina has struggled to defend. With tempo also in your favor, we played a 143. Here we go again. There hasn't been one of these the entire morning, and we get one right when the video hits record. So probably a car crash. Yeah, it's snowing here, so people forget what they're doing. Anyway, let's get to our last game. Sorry, got myself off track. Michigan takes on Washington. This was a request. If you have those, you can always leave them in the comments. I'll try to get to them with some preference. Anyway, Michigan 12.5-point favorite, 164.5 total, which we did take an under on. Michigan, fairly clean bill of health. It's the same old story with Washington. We have no idea who's going to play. Desmond Claude, Wesley Yates, they've both been out for a bit. Lathan Somerville, it looks like Jake Agasevich might play at some point. There was a report saying he's getting closer to return. I know a lot of people expected him to come back around the turn of the year. It was a very fluid date. Basically, I'm operating under the impression until I see them on the floor, I'm not anticipating them returning. It's been the same story for a while. Anyway, to get here, Michigan 14-1. They just lost their last game to Wisconsin at home. Crazy game. They still almost won. 91-88 was the final score. Wisconsin shot incredibly from three. We'll get to that. But this Michigan team has a lot of elite wins. They've been breaking records for most 30-point victories already this year. Wins over Auburn, who's 31, number 6 Gonzaga, 25 Villanova, 49 USC. The list goes on. And, I mean, this is the fourth most difficult schedule. The only blips on the radar other than Wisconsin, they played kind of close games to Wake Forest, TCU, and Penn State. All those teams are outside the top 50. But you occasionally play close games. Michigan's answered most questions. Washington's all over the place. They're 10-6, largely because of injury. They have losses to number 42 Baylor, 75 Colorado, 39 UCLA, 121 Seattle, 27 Indiana, and number 4 Purdue. They only have 3 wins in the top 100. Those came over Nevada on a neutral, USC, and Ohio State. Only one of those teams is a top 40 team. It has been the 36th most difficult schedule for Washington, so that's at least worth noting. But Michigan has a size advantage over just about everyone. They're 11th in effective height, 14th in rebounding. And Washington does play with some size. They're 32nd in effective height, 43rd in rebounding behind Steinbach and Kepeng. When Michigan has the ball on offense, it's very difficult to stop them. They are 3rd in effective field goal percentage, First on the inside, 68th from three. They don't shoot a ton of threes, kind of average in this regard, but Namari Burnett's at 37.5%. Elliot Cadeau's having his best season from beyond the arc at 43%. And Yaxel Lendenberg, he's at 35. They've all shot the ball well, and that doesn't even get to what you're getting from Morris Johnson and Ade Mara on the inside. Washington is 60th in total defense, 90th on the interior, 123rd in three-point defense. I mean, Kepeng and Steinbach are good rim protectors. They're still 90th in two-point defense. And even with those guys on the floor, these are kind of like paint-bound bigs. Michigan has a lot of spacing with these guys. Yaxel's going to bring you out of the paint. Michigan has the shooting and the spacing to exploit this. Michigan should be scoring basically at will against this Washington defense. Now, Washington's interesting. They're 193rd in effective field goal percentage. They've struggled scoring, 257th from three. They don't shoot a lot of threes to begin with. They're 312th in three-point rate. I think playing Michigan's elite rim protection defense is going to be a real problem for this Washington offense that doesn't want to shoot threes, doesn't shoot them very well, but probably isn't going to have a choice. They're going to be looking at the mid-range and the three. You don't have any other choice against the Wolverines. And I mean, we talked about Michigan's defense. They're first right now. They're first on the interior. Wisconsin was able to beat them not only because they shot the ball incredibly well, but they have floor spacing bigs that are shooting threes. Basically like the best three-point shooting game for Nolan Winter I've ever seen. That's not what you're getting out of Kepeng and Steinbach. So it's kind of a bad matchup for Washington. Turnovers don't really project to play a role. Michigan, they don't commit very, very many fouls for being this big. So, I mean, they generate a lot of fouls too, 74th. That could be something that's a problem for Washington. The tempo could be a problem in this game. Michigan is fourth. Actually first if you just isolate conference play. Washington is a little slower, though. They come in 187th. So as far as an under goes, this is going to be Washington-driven. If Washington starts hitting random threes like Wisconsin did, this could get bad fast. I don't think Washington has the offense to do what Wisconsin did, especially with the floor spacing bigs to take advantage of Michigan's defense. And if you're going to slow down Michigan, having two rim protectors in Kepeng and Steinbach, maybe they can do just enough. But anyway, we took an under in this game. The model actually has a fair amount of value on this still. Currently, we have this at 159. So you can play this. I know 163s are out there. That's playable, I think, if you want. As far as the spread goes, the model makes it minus 12.7. I could see Michigan running away with this if you want to take a side. It is the Wolverines or pass. Well, rapid fire, a few more wagers that I took in the prop market in addition to the Trey Kaufman-Wren over assist. Took Day Thomas over 1.5 three-pointers made. He plays for Cincinnati. And then on the betting front, didn't take a ton. Took an under in Arizona State, Arizona at 168.5. Also took Middle Tennessee over Louisiana Tech minus 3.5. Hoping to lengthen these videos. Need the health to cooperate. I've been battling this week, so thank you guys. If you have feedback, please leave it in the comments, especially on the graphics. And if you want to hear games, if you leave them in the comments a day in advance, I'll do my very best to get to them. But thank you for watching. I very much appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll be back again tomorrow. But until then, good luck.